The screen opens on a kaleidoscopic blur of pastel colors, distorted dollhouses, and exaggerated, almost grotesque, animated creatures. A hauntingly sweet voice, dripping with saccharine innocence and simmering rage, sings about childhood trauma and a world gone mad. This is the universe of Melanie Martinez, a place where fairy tale horror meets pop music, where teddy bears bleed, and nursery rhymes are laced with poison. But behind the theatricality, the oversized bows, and the distinctive two-toned hair lies a story far more complex, a journey not just into fame, but into the eye of a cultural storm. This isn't just a tale of a singer's rise. It's a deep dive into the fascinating, frustrating, and often terrifying mythology she created for herself, a mythology that would one day threaten to consume her whole. How did a shy girl from Long Island, obsessed with vintage toys and dark metaphors, become an artistic visionary and a lightning rod for controversy? To understand the enigma of Melanie Martinez, we have to go back to the very beginning, before the milk was soured and the candy turned to ash. Melanie Adele Martinez was born on April 28, 1995, in Queens, New York, to Puerto Rican and Dominican parents. But it was in the suburban landscape of Baldwin, Long Island, that she would find the fertile ground for her dark imagination. As a child, she was an old soul trapped in a new world, a girl who felt more comfortable with the aesthetics of the 1950s than with the trends of her own time. She was sensitive, deeply empathetic, and often felt like an outsider, a crybaby, a label she would later reclaim as a powerful badge of honor. Her home life, she later revealed, was not a perfect storybook. She described a turbulent childhood marked by her parents' separation and a profound sense of alienation. This early pain, this feeling of being an innocent in a corrupt world, would become the central pillar of her art. It was during these formative years that she found solace in music, in poetry, and in the visual arts. She began writing songs in high school, channeling her insecurities and her anxieties into a form of expression that felt both personal and universal. The first glimpse the world got of Melanie was not through a finished album, but on a TV screen. In 2012, she appeared on the third season of The Voice. At just 17, she was a quiet storm of a contestant, a visual anomaly with her striking half-black, half-blonde hair, and a vocal style that was both ethereal and deeply emotional. She captivated the judges with a haunting acoustic rendition of Britney Spears' Toxic, a choice that immediately signaled her intention to subvert expectations. She wasn't trying to be a pop star, she was trying to be an artist. Her mentor, Adam Levine, saw her potential, but even he couldn't fully contain the unique force she was becoming. She was eliminated in the fifth week, a loss that, for many, would have been a career-ending blow. But for Melanie, it was a release. It was the moment she realized she didn't need a TV show to define her. She needed to define herself. I think being on The Voice was a great experience, but it also made me realize that I couldn't conform to the music industry's standards, she said in an interview years later. I needed to make my own world. That world was Crybaby, a concept album released in 2015 that served as both a debut and a manifesto. The album tells the story of a fictional character named Crybaby, a fragile, childlike alter ego who navigates a series of nightmarish situations, a dysfunctional family, a toxic relationship, a violent kidnapping, all through the twisted lens of a child's imagination. Each song was a chapter, and each chapter was accompanied by a meticulously crafted music video that brought her twisted fairy tale to life. The videos were a masterclass in visual storytelling, filled with striking, unsettling imagery that blended the innocence of childhood with the darkness of adulthood. Fans, many of them young and marginalized themselves, connected deeply with the album's themes of trauma, anxiety, and nonconformity. They weren't just listening to music, they were entering a new reality. Her fanbase exploded, a rabid, devoted cult following that saw her as a kind of broken doll savior. She was no longer just a singer, she was a symbol. But with great fame came intense scrutiny, and with intense scrutiny came the inevitable cracks in the facade. The very persona that made her a star, the childlike aesthetic, the theatrical innocence, would become a source of controversy. Critics began to question if the dark imagery was a genuine artistic expression or a calculated, exploitative gimmick. She was accused of cultural appropriation for her use of certain styles and motifs, and of glorifying mental health issues with her stylized portrayals of trauma. But the true storm hit in December 2017. A former friend and collaborator, Timothy Heller, came forward with a detailed account of a sexual assault she alleged Martinez had committed against her. Heller's post on Twitter sent shockwaves through the fandom and the music world. The accusations were serious, specific, and detailed a harrowing experience. The internet, as it always does, became a battleground. Fans were torn, some fiercely defending Melanie and questioning Heller's motives, while others immediately condemned her and declared her cancelled. In the court of public opinion, the verdict was swift and brutal. Martinez, in a now infamous series of responses, denied the allegations, but her statements were often seen as evasive and insensitive. Her initial tweet, which read in part, "I am horrified and saddened by the false statements that were made tonight by Timothy Heller," was widely criticized for its cold, lawyerly tone. In a subsequent post, she offered a more detailed but still contradictory account of her relationship with Heller. She insisted their encounter was consensual, but the damage was done. For a fanbase built on a shared sense of trauma and empathy, the accusations were a profound betrayal. For years, she had been a voice for the wounded, the marginalized, the silenced. Now, she was being accused of silencing someone herself. The scandal lingered, a dark cloud over her career that would never fully dissipate. It fundamentally altered the way many viewed her and her art. The cute aesthetic suddenly seemed sinister, the childlike persona now looked like a shield, and the songs about victimization took on a chilling new dimension. After a period of relative silence, Martinez re-emerged with her second album, K-12, in 2019. It was not just an album, but a full-length feature film she wrote and directed herself. The project was a massive undertaking, a bold, ambitious return to the very world she had created. The film, a surreal, high-camp fantasy about the crybaby character in a nightmarish boarding school, was a testament to her uncompromising artistic vision. It was a defiant response to her critics, a message that she would not be silenced. But the film and album also felt different. There was a sense of a darker, more adult reality seeping in, a feeling that the innocence of the first album was gone forever. The fans who stuck with her embraced the project wholeheartedly, seeing it as a triumphant comeback. But for many who had left, the new work felt detached, a performance put on by a person who had lost their moral authority. The controversy had not destroyed her career, but it had irrevocably changed it, transforming her from a mainstream sensation into a cult icon, a figure whose art was now impossible to separate from her personal life. The next few years saw her double down on this reclusive, yet fiercely creative path. She largely retreated from the public eye, communicating with fans primarily through her art. She continued to release EPs and albums that expanded the crybaby lore, each one delving deeper into the psychological darkness and fantastical imagery that had become her trademark. Her music, once a reflection of a shared, vulnerable experience, now felt like a closed world, a private mythology that only the most dedicated fans could fully understand. She became a symbol of a new kind of celebrity, one that exists in a bubble, connected to her followers through a shared aesthetic and a collective defiance of the outside world. To her remaining fans, she was a misunderstood genius, a victim of cancel culture, a martyr for artistic expression. To her detractors, she was a cautionary tale, a prime example of a talent corrupted by ego and shielded by a devoted fanbase. Melanie Martinez's story is a fascinating and often uncomfortable reflection of our digital age. She rose to fame in a world where personal trauma can be both a source of artistic inspiration and a weapon in a public feud. Her career is a testament to the power of a singular, uncompromising vision, but also a stark reminder of the fragility of a public persona, especially one built on a foundation of vulnerability and innocence. She is a cult icon who has transcended the traditional music industry, creating a universe of her own design. She never fully apologized for her past, nor did she fade away. Instead, she chose to build a higher wall around her artistic kingdom, a fortress of glitter and pain. And so, we are left with the final image, a lone figure cloaked in a bizarre, almost beautiful theatrical costume, singing from a stage in a world of her own making. The stage is still brightly lit, the fans are still screaming, but the shadow of her past, of the accusations and the controversies, still looms large, an uninvited guest at her twisted fairytale tea party. She may have survived the fire, but the smoke still hangs in the air, a constant reminder that in the world of Melanie Martinez, nothing is ever quite as innocent as it seems. Her journey is not over, but the question of how she will be remembered, as a misunderstood artist or a self-serving provocateur, remains as unresolved and complex as the art she creates.